There we go.
Well, welcome back to another episode, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are joined by Samuel Chong to talk about the book, and I apologize. I know I asked before we got started how to pronounce it, but we're here to talk about the book Thiaoouba Prophecy, The Golden Planet, Abduction to the Ninth Planet by Michel Desmarquet. It's quite an interesting subject, everything it involves. So
Yeah.
without a doubt, it's definitely going to be an interesting show tonight. So Samuel, welcome to the show. Glad to have you on, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me here.
Oh, we try to make it open for everybody.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've been looking forward to tonight. I mean, I read your background, as I said before the show. I read your background, and it's a very interesting subject when it comes to the spirit world. But could you tell us a little bit about yourself before we head into the deep end, as one would say?
Yes, I was born in Beijing, China in 1978. And since I was young, I was always interested in learning the unknown. And I came to the US at the age of 15, went to high school and college, UC Berkeley. I studied a year at London School of Economics, and also got my master's degree from a university in Spain. And I went to the US, came back to the US, and I started working as a paralegal, and also started working as a certified court interpreter. And I speak Mandarin Chinese as my native language. And right now I'm doing a lot of work for doctors and lawyers and also the court systems.
Yeah, that's quite a lot you've done there. I mean, as we were talking before the show, it's quite a hard job sitting there typing everything that everybody says in the court. You know, it's quite interesting, as one would say. So can you tell us a little about this book? I mean, I find it fascinating in a kind of spiritual sense with the ghosts and the spirits, but I know Dakota finds it interesting because of the alien side of stuff.
Yeah, the book is actually written by Michel Desmarquet, a French Australian, who in 1978 was taken away by this group of ETs to their planet for 9 days and then came back. What was important was that he brought a lot of knowledge and information about the mysteries and the paranormals of the world. For example, he was told how and when the Great Pyramid of Egypt was built, for what purposes, what happens in the Bermuda Triangle, what really happened during the destructions of Sodom and Gomorra, and who really parted the sea for Moses, helping the Hebrews to escape the regimes or the rules of the ancient pharaohs, who is really Jesus and Christ, and what are the real dangers on earth, and things like that.
Yeah.
And also it's fascinating because it explains like what ghosts are, and also explains the purpose of life, also about reincarnation. So everything that people may wonder about is explained in the book. So this book is so fascinating that I really want to tell everyone about it.
That's so interesting. I've got so many questions for you tonight. I mean, I've not had a chance to get the book. I will get the book and I will read the book. But it's something I've always wondered. The pyramids, why were they built?
Yeah, the Great Pyramid of Egypt was actually built by a very learned, wise man from Atlantis about 17,000 years ago, using anti-gravitational technologies and supersonic vibratory systems to cut the huge stones in a very precise manner. Because Thoth, the person from Atlantis, had the knowledge, he was able to align the huge stones in a very precise manner so that it could be used as an energy center absorbing terrestrial and celestial cosmic energies, so that it could be used as an energy center to communicate to people on different planets and in other worlds. It could also be used to make rain. And actually, the Great Pyramid of Egypt was not the only pyramid that was built by the ancient civilizations. There were also other pyramids in different parts of the world, including one that was actually on the continent of Lemuria about 14,500 years ago, and that Great Pyramid was actually bigger than the pyramid in Egypt.
I've heard that. I've heard about that, and I've heard that. I find it fascinating because you get South America, you get the ancient Maya, they built pyramids, and also a lot of people don't realize, but there's pyramids actually in Europe, but they've actually just come across them in Serbia and places like that, which I find very interesting.
Exactly, and also once you know how they were built and for what purposes, you're able to see that the ancient civilizations took advantage of the knowledge that they had to build this massive structure as a tool to really communicate with people on different planets. And this is fascinating because it's never been meant a tomb for the pharaohs, and it's been
They
debunked.
just used that. Used that. Yeah. They seen this ginormous building and thought, do you know something? That would make a great grave when I die. That's what they did.
Yeah.
So, as you were talking, when it came to the figures of Jesus and Christ, perhaps one of the things I've noticed in some of the interviews I've listened that you've done to talking about this book is that the figures known as Jesus and Christ may have actually been two people. What's the story behind that?
Yes, Jesus and Christ, according to the ETs, there were actually two different beings. When I was reading the Bible, I always wondered about why Jesus, like there was no record of Jesus performing miracles before the age of 30, before he began preaching. And why, when he started preaching, he didn't call his mother, he called his mother woman. And that actually also explains why Jesus, some people say that Jesus went to India, and why there's a tomb of Jesus in Shingo Village, Japan. Actually, the Jesus born out of Virgin Mary was actually born from the embryo implanted by the ETs into the uterus of Virgin Mary, just to fulfill prophecies and to show people that someone extraordinary was going to be born at that time, so that people could pay attention to that event. And but because when the astral body goes into the embryo, the astral body of a person would have to pass through what the ancient Nagas would call the river of oblivion, forgetting all the events that happened in the past and forgetting all the knowledge that he learned in the past. So that's why the young Jesus, even though he was highly spiritual, having a very interesting conversation with the teachers of the temple, he couldn't perform miracles. That's the Jesus who went to India and died in Japan. And people can still visit the tomb of Jesus in Japan. Just look it up, Shingo Village, Japan, tomb of Jesus. And you'll find a lot of information and videos on that. And that's the Jesus who didn't die on the cross. The Christ who died on the cross was actually an ET being who took on the body of Jesus, made by themselves, just to appear like Jesus back then, just to show people that he was someone who could perform miracles, so that his teachings could be believed. Remember, in the past, as nowadays as well, people were and still are very skeptical. So they wouldn't believe anything that everyone just says unless he could perform some kind of miracles. So this is the reason why they took on the body of Jesus and performed miracles. And this is the Christ that died on the cross and then resurrected 3 days after, just to show people at that time that there's life after death and there's reincarnation. But as some of us all know, the concept of reincarnation was later removed by the Catholic Church Council meetings.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I find that I didn't know about that about Japan. I find that so interesting. I'm going to look that up tonight about how he went to Japan. I did not know that. I've never heard that before. I find that fascinating. I mean, I always thought to myself that the Bible was a wee bit made up. I always thought that because if anybody's ever read the Bible, which I have, there's people in it that's lived to like 900 years old, and what was it? The Bible was actually written. Was it 400 years after Jesus was meant to have passed? So
Yeah.
it's like, what do you believe here? I mean, I find the reincarnation thing. I find that fascinating because I see this pops up a lot, especially in the spiritual world. And I've had like mediums tell me you can choose to come back, but when you choose to come back, you forget everything. Could you tell us a bit more about the reincarnation?
Yes. And before I get into that, this book, Thiaoouba Prophecy, has a lot of specific verifiable details, such as the tomb of Jesus in Shingo Village, Japan. It's spelled as Shingo, Shingo Village, Japan.
Right.
And also tells about reincarnation because Michel Desmarquet was actually taken by the ETs to his past lives so that he was able to see who he was in each different past lives. So one time he was a German mining worker, and then the other lifetime he was a queen of a country ruling one third of
Wow.
the planet. And then, but most of his past life were like common people, like beggars on the streets, like a goldsmith in Japan,
Mhm.
and very common lives, because in each past life he would have a specific lesson to learn, because the purpose of life is to accumulate spiritual lessons and experiences, and then send the experiences to the higher self, which is connected to the creator of the universe, the source, what we would call God.
Yeah.
And each person would decide when and which families to reincarnate into, and what kind of lessons to learn in the next lifetime. It's actually been proven by psychologists and doctors in the US, and people interested can read the works of Dr. Brian Weiss, Dr. Michael Newton,
Yeah.
and Dr. Ian
Mhm.
Stevenson.
That's I mean, I've heard stories about reincarnation, and I actually had a conversation with somebody like this, and I says, "What happens if I don't want to come back?" And he says, "But you won't remember. You won't remember. When you die, you cross. You get to see your relatives again," which I find strange because there's reincarnation, but I think it's a bit of them that's been left there for when it's your time. And obviously, you plan everything. So all of us that's sitting down now, even some of the people in the chat, we might actually know each other from a previous life, which I find
Exactly.
so interesting.
Yes.
And how
Mhm.
did the extraterrestrials? Obviously, I know with the extraterrestrials are millions of years old, or some of them are billions of years old. Is there technology that advanced that they can actually see into the spirit realms?
Yeah, they are actually far more advanced and civilized than us. They have been watching us over the years throughout our past,
Mhm.
like the destructions of Sodom and Gomorra, and parting the sea for
Yes.
Moses and Jesus. So they were actually guiding us and mentoring us throughout history in the past. And they do have advanced technologies, and actually they have a lot of psychic abilities to be able to take the
Mhm.
author Michel Desmarquet to his past lives, and also on different occasion they took him to the Akashic record. So Michel Desmarquet, the author, was able to
Yeah.
witness what happened in the
Mhm.
past 14,500 years ago, when the entire continent of Lemuria in the Pacific Ocean
Wow.
sunk into the ocean overnight because of an earthquake. So he witnessed the whole event. So this book has a lot of very specific details that are so fascinating, and this is the best book I ever read.
It's fascinating what you say about that continent because it makes you wonder. It makes you wonder, could that happen again to our civilization?
Well, they certainly give us a lot of warnings through this book. They
Mhm.
say that natural disasters have their courses to run, but the main focus for us should be focusing on spiritual development, not the
Yes.
materialistic aspects of our lives. And actually, they pointed out that the real dangers on Earth right now, number one, is money. Number two,
Yeah.
politicians. Number three, journalists and drugs. Number 4, religions. So those are the real dangers on earth that we should all be aware of, and also change our actions so that we can change the course of the future so that we can have a better future.
Yeah, I agree
Definitely.
100%. Yeah.
So, going through the list for people who may be wondering what is the logic behind those 4 items on the list that these ETs are trying to warn us about?
Well, they say that the reason for us to be on Earth and to be reincarnated on Earth is to learn basic lessons in life. And we should focus on the spiritual development. And to be spiritual, that means to follow the teachings of Christ and other spiritual masters. And if we focus too much on money, which is happening right now, if you look at the then things are going to go downward spiral. If you look at the things that are happening right now, like the big pharmaceutical companies, they know the ways to, for example, cure diabetes. They just don't do that because they want people to rely on the drugs so that they can profit from them.
Yeah.
And there are ways to cure cancer, but they don't disclose the information. They still encourage people to take drugs or chemotherapies so that they can make a lot of money. Same thing for the energy industry. There are clean energy technologies that were discovered and invented, for example, by Stanley Meyer, who invented the car that ran on water. He could split in the
That's
oxygen
right.
hydrogen
Yeah.
atoms, and there are also like implications in the education industry, in the media, and things like that. So everything is actually like revolved around money in order to profit the industries, the big
Yes.
corporations. So that's the number 1 danger on Earth. Number 2, politicians. I think I don't need to elaborate on that. All the politicians, most of the politicians,
Yeah.
they always
Yeah.
focus
I agree
on
there. Yeah.
fame, power, and re-election, and they just make false promises, empty promises, and they don't act on that. And a lot of the kind and good-hearted politicians are kind of voted down by other means, and they sometimes get assassinated, and they don't have
Yes.
second terms, and things like that. And number 3 is the journalists and drugs. So journalists, people say, like in the book, the ET say that the journalists on Earth, they focus too much on the sensational news. So they report a lot of the disasters and also the crimes. And when people who read the news reports on crimes, they tend to want to imitate the criminal acts. So that's kind of like
Yeah.
a bad way to influence the psyche of the people. So instead, people should focus on the more positive news and report on the good deeds and compassionate deeds of the people. There's actually a very good media in the U.S. called the Good News Network. People can just do a search and find that website. They report on a lot of
There's
inspiring.
actually somebody in the
Yes.
There's actually someone in the chat just said that. What about the good news? It's in the chat there.
Yes.
I will say this. I will say this. Yeah, the journalism now and what's going on in the world. Don't believe what you see because a lot of it's just like propaganda, and it is to help the people that's in power stay in power. And it's true what you say, and it's true what you say about money. Let's just face it: the governments of the world just print money. Look at the US government; they just print as much money as they want.
Yeah.
And people don't. Yeah.
And if you, I have a financial background. My major was economics and financial analysis. And I used to think that if I were able to play the stock market, the financial markets, I would be able to earn a lot of money. But over the years, I've realized that the financial world, financial system doesn't work that way. There's a hierarchy structure in which the International Bank of Settlements and is the top of the structure, and people can just print money. I mean, the shareholders of the major central banks, they can just print money, and then no matter how great investor you are, you wouldn't be able to be as wealthy as them because they control the system. So I kind of pity Warren Buffett or Ray Dalio because they don't see this. They don't seem to see this. They are believed among the public, among the people that are great investors. But compared to the shareholders of the central banks, they're just nothing. They're just very very kind of minimum like nothing, like very very basic people. So that's the financial markets. But people can search on the Good News Network to learn about that company that report on good news. And the
I'll
other
look at that up tonight.
yeah, and the other danger is drugs. By drugs, the author meant hallucinogenic drugs. So I know a lot of people in the spiritual communities, they want to try psychedelic drugs to experience the spiritual kind of realm. But actually, according to the ETs, that's artificial. That actually damages the astral body of a person. So because people should experience spiritual realms naturally, but not artificially using psychedelic drugs. And actually, I kind of verified this information by having aura readers, people who can see auras or human energy fields, to take a look at the people who use drugs. And the result was that they see ugly auras.
It's interesting. It's interesting you say that. It's interesting you say that because I've noticed, and I've got friends that can see auras, and it was weird because a couple of days ago I was having this exact conversation with them. They were actually talking about normal people have amazing purple and greens and red auras run about them, whereas you get these people that are into their psychedelic stuff, they're into their acid and stuff like that, they think they can talk to the ancients and stuff like that, but they don't have any auras run about them. It's as if it's done something to them. Yeah. I find that interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
I always kind of want to look for proof, and it's just that people need to have the knowledge to know this. So it's kind of another proof is that people who use marijuana or psychedelics, they tend to age at a much faster pace. So they
I've noticed that.
Yeah, it's a side effect.
I have noticed that. I've noticed that bit of side effect. I mean, it's something that I suppose only time can stop is people using these things. It's I don't know what the human race will be like in even 5 years, 10 years from now, because the way the world's going, I mean, you just need to look at the mainstream media, which although it's fake, and the world's falling apart. I mean, there's wars, there's rumors of wars, there's killing on a mass scale. I mean, the ETs must sit back and they must think, are we failing these people? Because I know they're trying to help, but it must be difficult for them.
Yeah. So this is why they're stepping in right now, just to have Michel Desmarquet, the author, to go to their planet and to write a book to warn us. And they are kind of warning us that if we don't change the course of actions, how we live, then there are going to be catastrophes happening in the future. Yeah. So in this sense, it's a prophecy. But the future really depends on our actions. We can change the course of the actions so that the future can become better and brighter. In that, it meant that while the past is fixed, I mean, we can go back to the past, but the future is changeable depending on our collective consciousness.
Absolutely. So there was probably a few people wondering, what is it that drew you to Michel Desmarquet, and how did this book come into your attention?
Yeah, since I was young, I was very curious about everything. Like in China back then, the media was fairly open to this kind of UFOs and ETs information. So they always kind of report what happened outside of China. So there was one article saying that a physicist was taken by the ETs to their spacecraft, and the physicist was informed that even though Einstein laid the foundations to modern physics, but he made a small mistake, so that we now believe that we cannot travel faster than the speed of light. And then I thought that if that's the case, then we can just learn from the ETs. It's like cutting the corners, getting the shortcut. We can progress at a much faster pace if we can just absorb the knowledge and the assistance and from the ETs. So in my subconscious mind, I was always looking for books and articles written by ET contactees. So after I came to the US, I was intentionally looking for such books. And I read a lot of them already before I read a book, Thiaoouba Prophecy or Jehovah Prophecy. And then one day I was searching on the internet on Amazon. I found this book, Abduction to the Ninth Planet. And then I checked it out. And then I couldn't put the book down because it contains so much specific information that I was able to verify and validate. And there are so many facts that I was able to really kind of do additional research and to validate the claims. Remember, I work with a lot of lawyers and doctors, and I have to see the proof and the foundations of the claims. And this book provides everything that's needed to kind of validate the information kind of written by the author. So this is why I'm so fascinated by the book, and I actually sought out and visited the author because in the postscript it says there are more incredible things that the author was not allowed to write in the book because we were far from understanding them. I was extremely curious, and I didn't believe that I was far from understanding them. I thought I was able to understand it, so I tracked the author down, and I couldn't find exactly where he was located, but there was a tourist, a traveler, who took a photo of his bungalow, and I printed a picture and I flew to the island where the tourist saw him, and I showed that picture to the local taxi driver, and the taxi driver took me to where he lived.
Interesting.
It's very interesting, isn't it? I mean, it's just my mind's kind of blown now. I just can't wait to buy this book. I want to go and get this book because there's so many questions I have. I'll let you go to Dakota because I know that you've got more questions.
So I've listened to a couple other interviews you've done with this. I've heard that the author's experience with this actually caused a little bit of turmoil in his personal life, especially with his wife not believing that he was abducted by aliens. Can you tell a little bit more about that?
Yes. You know, he was missing. He disappeared for 10 days or so. And then when he came back, he slept for quite a while. And after he woke up, he told what happened to him. And his son believed that everything happened to him, but his wife didn't believe him at all and thinking that he was having an affair with another woman. Remember, back then it was in the late 80s. So it's kind of and then he had a lot of emotional turmoil, and he had different personal issues, and one person suggested him to change, and it actually caused his marriage. He divorced his wife, and the person suggested him to go to a different environment, change the location, and this is when he went to Vietnam, on Phu Quoc Island, and lived there for the rest of his life and married a local woman. So this is what happened to him. Yeah.
No, go ahead, Chris.
I was just gonna. I find it. I mean, the early 80s was. I'm from the 80s. I was born in 1981. I remember Dakota here is a lot younger than me. I mean, but it's as fascinating. I was wondering, could I jump to a subject? I was wondering if I could jump to ask about Sodom and Gomorrah, because obviously the Bible says it was destroyed because they were heathens and all that kind of stuff. Why was Sodom and Gomorrah destroyed?
Well, in order to know the reason, we have to look at the Jewish texts, the scriptures of the
Right.
Hebrews, not the Christian text, because
Mhm.
Christian text only talks about sodomy, which is only like a small reason. The main reason is that the people in the two cities, Sodom and Gomorrah, were so evil that they punished the
Yeah.
compassionate and loving people. For example, like in the Jewish text, there's it describes like a girl who was very compassionate, helping the beggars by giving the beggar
Mhm.
like some coins and some money and some food. But then the girl was
Mhm.
tortured to death because she helped the beggar. And then there were other deeds done by the Sodom and Gomorrah, and, and they were just so evil, and so they have to do something about it, and so this is why they destroyed the two cities. I'll give you an analogy. When you have kind of a malignant tumor on your skin, or
Yeah.
maybe on part of your
Cut
body,
it out. Yeah.
that are going to spread,
Yeah.
you have to take them out. So similarly,
Yeah.
the people in the two cities were kind of affecting people who were in contact with them, so they had to be taken
Yeah.
out.
Mm.
Yeah. It's fascinating that. I mean, it's true what you say. It's if you've got a tumor growing in your arm, it's better just to have it cut out, and then it doesn't spread to like the neighbouring cities and such. Dakota.
So, out of curiosity, does the author go into why certain people seem to be selected when it comes to where they have more contact with ETs, why they seem to have more spiritual experiences than others? Because you would think if more and more people were to have these experiences, we would be able to talk about it more openly and maybe progress several times further. But why does it seem like only certain people are selected?
Well, people on Earth have different number of past lives. For example, Michel Desmarquet, before he went on the trip, he had 80 past lives already. So he was considered like an old soul, and he had this kind of accumulation of past lives and experiences from before, spiritual lessons from before. And some people like they're just younger souls. They don't have as many past lives as the author did. And there are also different levels of planets or different categories of planets in the universe. For example, Earth is a category 1 planet, and Thiaoouba Jehovah is a category 9 planet. So we are just like elementary school students learning the basics. They're just like college professors, kind of guiding us, giving us basic principles of life. And above that, that will be the source, the creator of the universe. So we are gradually learning. So a person, after accumulating sufficient like spiritual lessons, he or she might progress and live on category 3 planet. Michel Desmarquet actually lived on category 7 planet before. So he actually had this kind of spiritual attainment already, but for some reason he decided to come back to a category 1 planet, Earth, and to kind of I think this is one of the reasons that he was chosen.
Yeah. That's fascinating about how we are kind of like kindergarten if you really think about it. I mean, there'll be planets out there that are level 9 and higher, but it makes you wonder. The aliens, the extraterrestrials will be looking at us and they're thinking, "Yous are just children. Yous are children. We are so older and so much older than you are." And I find that interesting because you've heard stories about how government bases have had their nuclear weapons turned off. And obviously they can do that because they've got the technology. I always find that interesting. There's all this fear in the media the now where, oh, Russia's going to use nuclear weapons. It's got to be the end of the world. I don't think they would allow that to happen. I think they would turn them off. I really do. What's your opinion?
Yes, they have turned the nuclear weapons off many times in the past, and actually, but on the other hand, when a child plays fire, and then the parents give warnings to the child, then
Mhm.
there are just so many times that the warnings can be given, and
Yes.
so it's up to the child to determine whether to continue playing fire or not. So it's up to us to kind of decide what kind of future to have.
It's very true. I mean, you were talking about Atlantis. What happened to Atlantis exactly? Why did it? What actually happened with Atlantis? Does it still exist? What I mean is, I've heard a lot of stories like the Pacific. Under the Pacific, there's meant to be like alien races living there. Do they still exist?
Well, the book talks about Atlantis, but it doesn't really go into
Mm.
detail. It talks at length about Lemuria, which is the continent that existed
Yes.
in the Pacific Ocean. Yes, indeed, there were ET people on the continent of Lemuria, and they came to the continent about 250,000 years ago from the planet Arimo X3. And because they encountered the Chinese people who were living on the northwestern corner of the continent, they retreated back to the far side of the moon and built ET bases as transfer stations so that they can migrate their peoples face by face. They did that because they had a overpopulation issue on their planet Arimo X3. So as they kind of step by step migrating their people, they established a very successful and advanced civilization on Lemuria, and they built a pyramid that's 3 times as large as the Great Pyramid of Egypt. They had a lot of knowledge using the technologies I just mentioned, the anti-gravitational technologies and ultrasonic vibratory systems. They also use nuclear power to power light bulbs. And they have a lot of knowledge, and they colonized a lot of parts of the rest of the world, including Atlantis, where the Caucasians landed. The,
Yes.
and yeah, so this is the story in the book. Yeah.
I find that fascinating to think thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. I know with China is one of the oldest civilizations in the world, because there's things in China that's been hidden that's getting uncovered to this day. Strange buildings, strange artifacts that have been found in China that they just cannot explain. I've seen it on like documentaries and stuff, and it makes you wonder. Somewhere in the Pacific right now, there's a pyramid under the sea. What's left of a pyramid under the sea, and an ancient civilization that once ruled the earth, and now it's gone. It's sad, but in a way, I suppose it's progress, isn't it? I mean, it's that's nature. It happens.
Yeah, there are some archaeological findings of kind of interesting stone structures in the Pacific Rim and
Yes.
under sea, very deep under the sea. And actually, the Chinese were not the only ancient civilizations on Earth. There are also the black people, who came with the Chinese, the yellows, from a different planet called Bacratini, 1.35 million years ago. But the civilization didn't continue because of a natural disaster that happened about 1.3 million years ago, when an asteroid hit Earth and split into 3 parts after it got into the atmosphere. So one part landed on the what's now today's Red Sea area, and the other part kind of struck East Timor area, and the third, the smallest part, hit the Galapagos Islands. So the Galapagos Islands, if people now visit there, is people can see that is the remnants of of a of a asteroid hitting there. Yeah.
It's quite actually that's so weird, that, because I was actually watching a program about that, and they were talking about the rock in the Galapagos Islands, the rock, and it's all got fissures all the way through it, and they were actually talking about at one point there must have been something that caused a shockwave to fracture all the
Yeah.
rock in the islands. That's really interesting. That is.
Yes.
Go on.
And also, if you look at the Easter Island and Hawaii
Mhm.
Islands, I mean, Easter Island used to be part of the continent Lemuria, and people who built the moas, the statues on Easter Island, were the people from Arima X3 who had the advanced
Mhm.
civilization and technologies to carve the huge stone structures. And also Hawaiian Islands used to be part of the Lemuria as well. And I think if people read the book by James Churchward that explains in more details about the history of the Lemurian civilization.
Yeah, it's I mean,
That is interesting. So you mentioned before that the Earth has gone through at least two great resets in its history. Is it possible that with everything that's going on today, if we don't essentially get our act together, we could potentially face another one?
Yes, exactly. So this is why I've been putting so much time and attention to spread the messages of the book. And I'm a certified code interpreter and a Chinese translator. I can just be just going to my professional world and make a lot of money and just to enjoy my life.
mhm.
But I'm spending a lot of time doing this without pay, without compensation, because
Yeah.
I think this is my personal belief. Our future is at stake. It's not just the future of the
Yes.
Chinese, not just the future of the British or the Americans. It's the future of the entire mankind. It's all races together,
Mhm.
the Jewish, the blacks and the yellows, the Caucasians. I mean, Polynesians, and everyone is connected. Everyone is created by God, the great ether, the source, and we are just one family. There shouldn't be conflicts because we are just brothers or sisters, and our future is at stake. We have to get something done together.
Absolutely.
I'm sitting here thinking that I wished the world was like that, because you just need to turn on the TV or pick up a paper to see that the fact that everybody is trying to kill everybody, and we need to stop it. We need to actually try and overcome the hatred in this world. Can you imagine this? Can you imagine what we could become if we all just put everything aside, especially a religion, and we could be in the stars within 100 years. We could be another civilization out there looking for other planets, helping other planets.
And people need to realize exactly, and people need to realize what's really going on in the world behind the scenes. And over the years, I've been in touch with people who provided the kind of insider information, and I was so fortunate to be in touch with them. And people need to realize that, for example, in the U.S., people see Republicans fighting against Democrats, but people don't see
Yeah.
that they're actually the same group of people pulling the strings behind the scenes. And there's a group of people on the top of everything, the financiers, people doing everything behind the major corporations. Some of them are also members of the secret societies. I don't think it's a
Oh yeah.
coincidence that I was able to translate a different book. This book, 334 Lies, from German into
Oh.
English. And this is actually a book written by the highest degree chair of a secret society that was founded in Germany. And it talks about how he became the chair of the organization from a young German student, and it reveals the secrets of the members of the secret societies, and also tells that a lot of the conflicts in the world are actually created by them or by others. They're not really the conflicts of the people, but politicians or special interest groups who really want to
Yeah.
profit from the conflicts.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
but this book and also the book Thiaoouba Prophecy give a solution. That's the power of the people is not to be underestimated. So it really up to our collective actions, concerted actions, and then we can really act together to to really revolve against the tyrannies in the world. And then but it really takes knowledge, courage, and collective actions.
It does take courage. I mean, if we all just tried for once, we could all rise up and we could make a change. We could make a change. And I think the ETs that's watching this, I think that's what they want us to do. They want us to change. We want us to all work together and stop this fighting. I think that when the day comes when we all start working together and we start helping each other and all the hatred settles down, I do think they'll come down. I think they'll come down, they'll land, they'll come, they'll speak to us. I think that's what they're waiting on. I definitely think that's what they're waiting on. I mean, it's true what you say about like the Catholic Church and stuff like that. At all churches, I think the Catholic Church knows the truth about Jesus. But if they let that out, their system will collapse. It will completely collapse overnight. And it's the same with other religions out there. It's the world is delicate state. The world is in a delicate state now, but we need to work together. Because if we don't, they'll probably end up resetting us again, and we're going to have to work all the way back up again with technology. And I think it could be done if we all just worked together for once. We just tried. We really could. Dakota?
No, absolutely. I mean, right now we're in a state. Regardless of the situation, and I imagine you've probably seen more than plenty of instances of this working in the courtroom. The corrupt people, the number one thing they fear is when the truth gets out, when people actually start coming together to try to course correct and realize, hey, this isn't right. We need to be doing better. And it's just honestly, it's just fascinating when you really see how far deep it really goes. But in regards to say like David Grush's testimonies within Congress, are you how do I put this? Is it a shock to you that it seems like there's an active effort to try to suppress the whistleblowers that have been coming out, especially as of late?
Well, it's certainly not a surprise to me because I've known this for a fact many years ago, and but I think the most important thing is that people need to realize that we can do things that they're afraid of. For example, a major strike, and everyone stops working. And if you think about it, it's a major corporations, military industrial complex that are really kind of preventing the knowledge from coming out or the truth from coming out. But if people act together using nonviolent resistance, we can really kind of cause them to really rethink and to conform to our kind of demands and to really cave into our demands because they rely on our slave labor to profit themselves. If we stop working for them, we lose very little, but they would lose humongously, million times more than us. Because the poor people, I mean, we have little to lose, we have nothing to lose, but they will lose everything. So this is the way to think about it. Yeah.
And it's also paying taxes. I mean, you think of the money that I know here in Scotland, we've got ridiculous taxes on our vehicles, ridiculous taxes on the most stupidest things that should be free, especially in the United Kingdom. You know, the UK is like tax. It's the country's built on tax. I mean, I think I agree with you 100%. You got to be non-violent and just stand up and say enough's enough. We need to change this world before it's too late. It's got to be getting there. I mean, it's like the wars that's going on now in the Middle East and what's going on in Europe. A lot of people don't realize how that's all connected. You think of the companies out there that are making trillions of dollars right now, trillions, on weapons of mass destruction. And they're all in that. Russia's in that. Everybody's in that. But you look at it from a different angle and you can see how it's all connected. It's money. It's like you say, it's money. We need to really get rid of money. Like a kind of Star Trek society, we really need to get rid of money.
Yeah. And back to David Grush, and he was disclosing a lot of interesting information of crashed UFOs or UAPs. But I would kind of encourage people to focus more on this book, Thiaoouba Prophecy, because this is the ETs that their UFOs or UAPs didn't crash. So they have more far superior technologies. So we should learn from the best, from the ones whose UFOs will never crash, not from the ETs that UFOs crashed.
Yep.
I always find that interesting. A lot of UFOs out there crashed, whereas there's ancient races out there must think, my God, I don't want to buy one of those UFOs.
No, absolutely. I mean, we're all putting all these focuses just because we realize, yes, these may be fancier equipment than we have had at the time, but like you said, they crashed. Why would you want to have something that clearly doesn't work very well?
Yeah. It's like Dr. Stephen Greer says. It's like a lot of the UFOs have been brought down by radar. I mean, radar's been out since what, 1940s, and the radar's brought a lot of the UFOs down. So it makes you wonder. These other extraterrestrials. It makes you wonder, and I do think this too. It makes me wonder: did they deliberately let them have the technology? Did they deliberately let their ships crash? And then it makes me wonder if there's been races out there that are no the nicest, and they've been working with the governments, and they've maybe thought, oh, there's one of our ships accidentally crashed. Just keep it. Have some fun with it. It makes you wonder if the ETs out there deliberately let us have that technology for deals.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, and we do have technologies from the ETs whose UFOs crashed, and I know that Michel Desmarquet, the author of this book, actually spoke specifically about the Greys, who the U.S. government had been working with, and Michel Desmarquet says that the Greys also come from a Category 1 planet, the same level as Earth.
Yeah.
So they come to us because they want to observe us, and they did put implants on some of the people on Earth just to monitor us, because they have been losing their immune system, and we have been losing our immune system since 1948. So they want to see how we respond to the same situation, so they can learn from us. And definitely there's no danger from the implants, because the Thiaoubans of this book have been monitoring the activities of the Greys. So I think we should learn from the best. We shouldn't learn from our peers. So this is my philosophy. Yeah.
One day I hope, maybe when I reincarnate for the 5 millionth time, I don't know, but maybe one day I can look at the Earth and it will be like a level 6 or a level 7 society, where we're actually helping other worlds that used to be like us. I really do hope that happens one day.
Yeah, me too. And we progress spiritually, and we can elevate ourselves so that we can reincarnate to a higher category of planet.
I was wondering one question, and I know you mentioned it tonight because we don't have long left of the show, but what can you tell us? And it's a subject that I know that I've got friends that's watching right now that would like to know, because they find this place fascinating. The Bermuda Triangle. I had to ask, what's your opinion?
Yeah, Bermuda Triangle is just a natural phenomenon. It's a entry point or a portal, or in other words, like a warp into a parallel universe.
Yeah.
So it's just one of the warps on Earth. There are other points, other portals too, but this is the most well-known one. So it's just like a ribbon, like floating in the atmosphere on Earth. So planes, ships, or people who are nearby get sucked into this kind of parallel universe. And once you're inside, time stops, and you don't feel hunger or pain. And actually, Michel Desmarquet describes what it is inside of a parallel universe because he went inside. He was led by the ETs to use it. I mean, to go inside to take a look. And this actually coincides with the research done by David Paulides, who reported many people missing when they hiked in the national parks in the U.S. So people just vanished this very in strange circumstances, and I think this book, Thiaoouba Prophecy, gives a very plausible and interesting and logical explanation of the Bermuda Triangle and the portals on Earth.
I find it fascinating. I really do, because obviously you've got you've got the Devil's Triangle too. Is that not meant to be like a part of Japan? It goes with Mount Fuji, because obviously you've got the suicide forest there. But Mount Fuji itself's got weird vibes round about it, the forest round about it, and it makes all these locations around the world, like you say, like David Paulides in the national parks, which is, I find that fascinating. The stories out there where people have been like, there's been a group, there's been like 5 people in front of them and 5 people behind them, and the person in the middle just disappears and they don't know where they went.
Yes,
Never to this day, never to be found.
And David Paulides now thinks that there's a UFO connection. Yes, there's a UFO connection because the ETs, like this book, use the warps or portals as a way to come to Earth so that people will not be able to see them very clearly because they use that as a hiding place. Michel Desmarquet was taken away by the way of parallel universe because they didn't want his neighbors to see them. So they used that as an entry point to Earth. Yes.
I find it fascinating. I actually, I've been fascinated by how people can just disappear one day. I know national parks are big, but there's so many stories out there. I was actually listening to David Paulides. It was on Coast to Coast AM actually, and he was telling a story about how there was this family and they were walking through this rock gorge. There was no way out of it, and there was like 7 of them in front, and there was like 6 behind, and there was one person in the middle. And they got to the end and he was gone. He just disappeared. And still to this day, that person's not been found. So it makes you wonder where is he? He's just somewhere else. You know? So Dakota, would you anything else, man?
So with the last couple of minutes we have of the show, in regards to everything you have researched, what is a point you hope the audience will take home in regards to everything that's going on in your research, and just something you hope that sticks with them?
I would hope that the audience can really read the book because it's a book that contains vast amount of knowledge. And take home point is that we are all connected to God through our astral body, our higher self. So when you encounter challenges, look inside for answers and not to follow a specific religion or organized religion or a politician, because the kingdom of God is within you. It's said in the Bible, the kingdom of God is within you. So not to follow the media, but look inside for answers. How to do that? You can meditate, you can pray, or you can just have a good night of sleep. Because in dreams, you can always connect to your higher self. When the solutions are good for your spiritual development, they will be provided to you. And don't worry, everything is provided to you. And I think the challenges that we all face in our lifetime are valuable lessons that we need to learn and to navigate so that we can grow and to accumulate spiritual lessons.
I agree 100%. Yeah, I agree 100%. We're here to learn. We're here to learn for the next life, and then so on and so on until one day we're beings and we all meet up. I definitely think that. we're definitely here for a reason. And I would just like to say, Samuel, thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been a fantastic show tonight. And it's been absolutely amazing. It really has been absolutely amazing. I mean, there's so many questions out there. And I'm going to say this now, I'm going to buy that book. I'm definitely going to buy that book tonight. I'm going to order it. Everybody in the chat, I suggest you buy that book. Dakota, would you like to say anything, my friend?
No, I just want to thank you again, Samuel, for reaching out. This has definitely been an interesting interview, and there's never enough time to talk about this type of stuff.
Great, thank you, and I hope everyone enjoys the books.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Everybody
you.
in the chat, thank you for coming tonight, and please buy your book. And I'm going to buy that book because I think it's going to be a fascinating read, guys. Catch you all soon, and take care.
Definitely. Much love. Take care. We'll see you next time.